Hi, everyone. I am Rachael Nemeth, CEO and founder of Opus Training. So excited to be here and to welcome you to Back to Basics. You know, the restaurant industry really loves to talk about acting like a bigger brand, but most operators really struggle with how to actually do that. And today's guest actually did it and has the numbers to prove it. So I'm sitting down with Jason Morgan, CEO of Original ChopShop. He brings a really interesting combo of finance rigor and operational reality. If you haven't read his posts on LinkedIn, you should. He acquired Original ChopShop in 2016 when it had just 3 locations,
Right.
grown it to 27 units, while building out what I think is probably one of the most operationally sound businesses in fast casual. GM tenure is over 4 years, and employee retention is nearly double the industry average. So what makes Jason really valuable for this conversation, and especially for the operators listening, is his willingness to show his work. And that is what today's conversation is about. So Jason, welcome to Back to Basics. Nice to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. Introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about Original ChopShop.
Yeah, so I'm Jason Morgan, CEO of Original ChopShop. We are a better for you fast casual brand that is one of the biggest menus in the whole space. We do protein bowls, salads, sandwiches, but we also do fresh squeezed juice, acai bowls, protein shakes, and we do breakfast all day. A lot of folks look at our menu and think we're crazy for having 50 plus items in a world where most of our competitors are going to a very singularly focused menu. What we see with the diversity of the menu is we see a lot of higher frequency. Everybody thinks we're crazy, and so no one's trying to copy it. And so it's rare in this restaurant space that you find something that's unique and you find something that doesn't have a lot of people following trying to do exactly the same thing you're doing. Second thing about what we've done is our model is a counter service model. So you order at the counter, we bring the food to the table. And I've spoken a lot lately about, a lot of my competitors and most everybody has moved to a walk the line model. And there's a lot of negative feedback happening about that in social media today. I saw something posted like slop bowls, I guess is the new phrase where people are just shoveling stuff in. Look, we think that we have the ability to create an emotional connection with the guest because of the service model. If you go to Chipotle, where I had lunch today, it's very functional, right? So people are coming in and they're walking the line and they're expecting to be asked, do you want this or that in your bowl? But they're not asked about, how was your day or what's,
Right.
good to see you again. It's a very transactional focus because it generates the easier labor model. We're doing something completely different. And so I really do feel like we have one of the more unique brands that are out there in the space. We bought the business in 2016, like you said, 3 units, all in Phoenix. And then we've grown it to 26. We have 10 in Arizona. We have 13 in Texas, 9 of those in Dallas, 3 Houston, 1 in College Station, and then 3 in Atlanta. And we open our next store in about 3 weeks in Phoenix. And then we're hoping to do somewhere between 4 and 8 next year.
It's incredible. When you acquired the brand, did it have that sort of take on the menu and sort of how you situated yourselves competitively?
They had it, they didn't know what they had, if that makes any sense. So like I walked in the first day and was blown away. I was like, I get it. Like I completely get what this is, what this could be. I don't see anything else like this in the marketplace. Multiple day parts. I mean, we're open at 7 in the morning. Most of the stores close at 9 at night, 8 on Sundays. And so there are people that are trickling in all day long. And so you wake up and you've done a $10,000 day and it's like, wow, that didn't even really seem that busy. I've actually had other restaurant executives say, man, I'm so sorry about your location, here. It seems never busy. I go, well, the store does $3 million. Like it's a busy location.
Well, and the other day I wrote about ghost employees, about how there's so few restaurants and frontline organizations that are actually thinking about the first 90 days as so critical to lowering those labor costs. I've spoken to CEOs who are actually just not thinking about it at all. They're saying, listen, we don't count those because it's such a high number. So I'm curious to get your perspective on how you sort of segment those labor costs.
I tend to have epiphanies every 3 months, 6 months, where something just like hits me over the head. Like, how did we not see this? And I probably have told you this story before. We were in Phoenix maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and we were driving around with my head of HR and my COO, and we were going store to store, and we had just looked at turnover, and turnover was like really high at the time. And I was like, this doesn't make any sense to me because everywhere I go, I see people that I know. Like it's the same people
Yeah.
working at each of these locations. And so we went back and cut the data in a different way. we went back and said, okay, if I've got 40 or so hourly people on each team, what do the top 15 people look like? How long have they been here? And it turned out those people had been here for 2.5 years on average. I
Mm.
was like, well, those are the people I keep seeing. Like, those are the people I see every time I come. And then the other 25 people are people that are going to be short-term employees with us. And it's just always going to be that way. And I think the realization of, like, okay, these 25 are always going to churn. How do we want them to represent the brand in the 60, 90,
Short
120 days
time.
they're going to be here?
Yeah.
And so one of the things we use with Opus, your tool, is like we have really focused on onboarding, and in those first 30, 60, 90 days, I want you to know the menu, and I want you to know our hospitality standards. And if that's all you know, I'm winning. Like, I'm winning
Mm.
because those people are going to churn. And then for the other folks, we've built more of a career pathing platform where you show people how you can get from cashier to shift leader to AGM and so forth. So I'm saying with trend in the back of house. And that all comes back when I told you I left jobs a lot.
Yeah.
Like we brought that sort of idea of, like, if we can keep people continually learning and feel like that people have a continual, this is what I'm working towards, or this is an opportunity that I'm getting, that people will stay and people will appreciate it. And so that's what we've seen. And we've had a lot of good success with that so far.
I love that approach too, to sort of put people into quartiles almost
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
say, this is how we're going to attack this. It's almost like in tech, how we think about different use cases. You can't solve the same problem for everyone. What that really makes me think about is, you said this quote. You said it's rare that operational issues get mentioned as reasons for soft sales results.
Yeah. Yes.
And so,
Yes.
especially when brands are really blaming external factors. So walk me through your analysis process when same store sales are underperforming. And more specifically, how do you separate execution issues from external market factors?
Yeah, it's hard. It's super hard. And for us, we want to know if we have a store that's underperforming. First off, did we pick a bad real estate site? And the answer typically
Mm.
is no there, because we've done a lot of diligence, and we're really good at that. And so we're fairly certain by the time we get something open that it's a good site. Second question is, has something happened externally that's impacting us, right? So is a new competitor opened up next door? Is there access to parking that's messed up? Is the street under construction? Is there something external that's happening? Because we believe that we have a brand that, if it's executed well, should be continuously growing. I felt the same way at Zoe's Kitchen. Is like, if you had a store that was underperforming and was losing sales, and it wasn't some external factor that was obvious, it probably was something happening in the four walls of the restaurant.
Hmm.
And it was almost always certain back to the leadership in the restaurant wasn't doing what you wanted them to do inside the restaurant. And so it's easy to go there immediately, right? And go, Susie's not running the store very well, the sales are down, but you sort of work your way to that. And
Mm.
we have a lot of analytics on our side here that sort of tell the story of is this happening a lot. And so, we're looking at internal reviews, customer third-party reviews. We get a lot of reviews. We use Ovation. I talk about Ovation a lot. I think I talk about Ovation and Opus more than anything out there. But, we did 64,000 Ovation reviews last year as a brand, and averaged a 4.6. And that just, if something's going wrong inside the store, our customer is going to tell us. And so we use that. We have different metrics we're asking people to hit in terms of scheduling and staffing and running the labor model, running ideal food costs. That we have all these administrative numbers that are important to us, that if you're not hitting them, you pretty much know, right?
Mm.
And then you just factor a lot of this stuff in. So we don't necessarily have a scorecard, but we have what we call an ideal P&L. I think it's maybe one of the best things we do. I have a fixed variable cost P&L based on whatever your sales are. This is what your profit should be. This is what your EBITDA should be. Because a lot of it is it flexes with increases or decreases in sales. Labor margin goes up and down. The fixed costs that are direct operating costs go up and down from a percentage standpoint. But we then trend that over time. And so I can look at a store, and like, I've got a store in Atlanta that's had 4 straight months of really poor performance in terms of labor and food costs. And we think we have a problem there. We're addressing the problem there, trying to understand what's happening. We don't think it's a management issue, but we think there's just a disconnect somehow in the labor force that we're getting there. of not doing what we'd like them to do. So we're on top of the underperformers and very very analytical in terms of how we think about them.
So, speaking of underperformers, you sort of had this process of elimination to say, okay, I'm
Mhm.
walking into a store that's underperforming. I have almost a checklist that I'm kind of working my
Mhm.
way through. Um, from a financial perspective, how do you evaluate what's worth investing in?
Yeah, so we made a decision really probably right around the COVID time period that we were going to double down on what we were offering, our salaried team members in the
Mm.
shops. We actually got rid of the bonus structure,
Hmm.
and instead gave that back to them in salary. And so it's my belief that people don't work any harder if they have a bonus or not. That if you've hired the right people, that they're going to come to work every day and they're going to give you their best. And if a competitor opens next door and the sales are bad and they would have lost their bonus, that's not really their fault. Like it's not their fault. And so we found ourselves always making exceptions to the policy. And we're like, well, let's just get rid of it. And a lot of those folks, they love having the same amount of money coming into their bank account every 2 weeks, right?
Right,
So
right.
we did that. We upgraded our benefit packages. We added some mental health benefits as well. For the hourly team, we started paying people, next day if you wanted to be paid next day. We put in a retention bonus, which we didn't have before, where if you're with us for 5 years, we'll cut you a $20,000 check at the 5 year
Mm.
anniversary. And then year 6, 7, 8, 9, 4,000 each year. And then at year 10, another $20,000. And it's a little bit from a finance person. It's a little bit painful at times to go, oh, we're paying out a lot of money next year for this plan. But at the same time, I've got tenure, like amazing tenure with these folks that have been here for a long time. So we have a pretty good program in place in terms of salary benefits. We have biannual review process where we go through, this is what you're doing great at, this is what you need to work on, these are your goals. And so we give people twice a year a chance to earn a merit increase. It works
Mm.
out to be the same dollar amount as if we'd have given it once a year, but it shortens up that review cycle. And I think that's been interesting. We used to do it 4 times a year, and we
Hmm.
just felt like that was a little bit administratively hard to pull off. And so we switched back to two.
But it's almost
Um,
like a tighter feedback loop
it's a tighter
so you
feedback
can
loop.
correct faster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
Hmm.
we've kept our span of control really tight in terms of most people have four to six restaurants in our regional focus. And so and they're hands on. They're in the shops. They're not paper pushers or sitting on the computer in a booth while everybody else is working. They're shoulder to shoulder. And so I think just we've created a good environment here where um, it feels very flat in terms of structure.
Right, because you
And
sort of reduce the scope of what
yeah,
you're. Yeah,
yeah,
that
it's
makes
like
sense.
our office is a good example. We are in 3,000 square feet. There's 20 of us that are in here, and nobody has an office. Like we're all like it's a big bullpen. Like
Hmm.
there's not a single office for anybody, and I love it. Like I don't want to be behind a door and close the door and hiding from people. Like it's amazing to have everybody out in one space. And so I think that's the sort of the environment too. Like when I walk into a store or Kyle Frederick, our COO, walks into a store, nobody's scared of us. Like
Yeah.
it's just like we're their buddy. Like we've created an environment that I think people are excited to see us. When we've toured potential investors in the past or other folks around, they're always amazed. They're like, these people know who you are. They know who you are. They
They
know
should.
everything. And I was like, well, that's great. I'm glad they do. But it's not like I met someone a couple of weeks ago. I won't tell you who it was, but they run a big brand, and I asked them about stores they had in Houston, and they didn't know if they
Mm.
gave me 3 stores that were not in Houston. And so I was like, how do you not know if you have stores in Houston or not? Like it just baffles me. So we're very connected. We're very connected to the data, to the team, to everything about what's happening here. And that just goes back to I think the finance piece of this sort of how my mind works.
You've struck this really beautiful balance of getting in the mud with the numbers, but also the people. And I think you've kind of chosen to live in both camps. You have a very analytical brain, but you also understand the reality that your frontline doesn't think that way. They think
Yeah.
about what's the next paycheck I'm going to get.
Yeah.
And I heard you say earlier, you said, training at Zoe's just wasn't working. At ChopShop, you've been using Opus for over a year now. You've been huge advocate for us. And what I'm curious about is what really sealed the deal that this was the right training tech for your operations?
Yeah, so we wanted to be video based. Like
Mm,
we wanted the video to be video based, and we actually like the idea of creating the content ourselves, so that it has our look, our feel, our people. We wanted video based, and look, this is we are very early. We had a video based training before Opus, and we tried to make it used for everything. We almost tried to use it too much, and so with Opus, what we've focused on is we've narrowed it down to the onboarding and campaign rollouts. With a narrower focus, we've been able to get people much more engaged and much more involved. I think our last campaign rollout, we had like 94% of our team completed the training, which that's front of house and back of house, which is just mind blowing because, in the older days, years ago, we'd be lucky if 40, 50% of the front of house completed it and nobody in the back of house would complete it.
right,
And you'd
right,
end up with a 30% completion rate. But that 94% of our people got on, went through it. And this is all the people that are going to be here 30 days, 60 days, 90 days too, right? Back to that. Like all those people completed it too. It's just great. It's been really good for us. The feedback, we're looking for other ways to use it, to solve, one of the things we'd like to be able to do very quickly is if we're having a store that's having problems with hospitality or food accuracy, to be able to point them to, training for that in particular.
right,
All right.
right.
And I know that's in the works with
That's the
Ovation.
Ovation integration. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's all very interesting to us as well. I think we'll keep it a very narrow scope of what we're trying to use it for.
Hmm.
And then we still do a lot of shoulder to shoulder training as well.
Yeah, which should never go away. That's a lot of how we aligned our organizations is you've had that philosophy of yes, we need a platform that can sort of do everything, but we also want to make sure that it's targeted to the things that we need in the organization right now. I mean, maybe that campaign is a great example here. When you look at those completion rates, what metrics do you track to just ensure that you're actually delivering the ROI that you're looking for?
I don't know if there's anything in particular that I track. I mean, we're
Mm,
tracking turnover, right? We're looking at turnover. We're looking at tenure. We're looking at 30, 60, 90-day tenure as well. We're looking at guest sat reviews, whether it's through the Google or whether it's through Ovation to understand, how we're performing there. A little bit of everything. There's not anything in particular that
not a
we're
single
looking at.
metric. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's how a lot of operators are thinking about it too. And that's why training has become seen as like the cost center instead of a clear ROI. Because with certain pieces of technology, you can
Oh,
clearly see, okay, this is making it faster to do X, Y, and Z. But
right.
training is so embedded in every interaction that it can get harder. But if you're seeing the needle move on those initiatives like turnover or same store sales or something, but you're also seeing that there's a correlation to completion, then that's how we think about it too. It doesn't have to be overcomplicated.
Yeah,
It
I
can
mean, look,
really
you
just
could
be
you could
really
always
quick.
just go put a training dollar to people that are turning over and come up with a gigantic number. It's always a gigantic number when you think about it
Yeah,
that way. And
yeah,
so just
yeah.
to know that you're keeping people longer, it sort of inherently implies
It's
that
simple.
number is lesser. Yeah.
Earlier you mentioned this is not a one man show. You have a team that's really helping you execute on these initiatives. And you talked about how you hire doers, not traditional executives. Kyle, your COO.
Mhm.
That sounds like it comes really from experience. Was there a hire or a situation that really taught you the difference between someone who can talk versus someone who can do?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've seen it my whole career. I'll step back to way back to like and tell you where it sort of first time it hit me. I worked for Arthur Andersen out of business school back in a long time ago, and I had someone that was senior to me walk past the copier to bring me a piece of paper to make a copy for him. And I was like, what in the hell, man? Like, I've got an MBA from a top 20 school, and it took you longer to bring it to me than if you could have just done it yourself. And so at that point, I'm like, I'm never going to ask anybody to do something that I wouldn't be willing to do myself. Not only willing to do it, but I better know how to do it. Right.
Yeah.
So I pride myself on knowing how to do most everything that everybody's doing. I may not be able to do it as well, but if my AP clerk is out tomorrow, I probably can go cut checks and run AP, right? And so I've wanted to always sort of hire people with that same mentality. You see in these bigger organizations, like at the Harris of the world, not so much of Gaylord, but there was a few there probably. You see people that get hired into these very senior roles, and they don't do a lot of day-to-day work.
Mm,
They hire people, they then hire people, and all of a sudden you end up with layers of people, and the people at the bottom are doing the work, and everybody else is sort of managing of the work. It's just uncanny. And so I think, like in some of these big restaurant companies, I mean, Sweet Green I've picked on quite a bit on my LinkedIn post. I think that's a challenge for them there. I mean, they're running 3 times the G&A that anyone else is running in the space, and I think that's the issue. Is they've got person on top of person on top of person. So what we did here early on is that the first core round of hires at ChopShop were all Zoe's Kitchen people. I was very fortunate that the people that I wanted and they wanted to come, they came over to ChopShop. At Zoe's, they had seen explosive growth for the most part really well done, but they were at job levels that didn't participate in the financial upside that
mm,
myself and a few other people had at Zoe's, but they got all the experience. And not only did they get the experience, but they were so young that if they went and tried to convince a recruiter in the space that they had the experience, the recruiter would go, "No, you don't really know how to do that. Like
right,
you don't."
right.
And it's like, I know they know how to do that. So that's who I hired, people that had seen a lot at a young part of their career and had lots of upside. And as always, we were, man, until the IPO, we were doers. Like it was a lean group, and then the IPO sort of turned that business into what I'd seen elsewhere, where you all of a sudden have executives, right? And the executives come in and they've been in bigger businesses and they just build structure and it's just a lot of fluff. And so we've tried not to do that here. So back with everything we've done here is very lean. We've got a handful of people, 2, 3 people in each department. And there are things I do every day that would probably shock you in terms of like
What's one
probably
thing you've done today that would shock me?
um, I am the database administrator for our Restaurant 365 recipes. And like, do I need to do it? Probably not. But I built it when like 7 years ago, 8 years ago. I'm very particular about syntax and how things are set up. It's correct. It could easily become not correct, and it doesn't take much time. And
Mm,
so I jump in when there's a change to be made. I jump in to make the change. I probably need to give that to somebody, but I enjoy doing it, and again, it doesn't take a lot of time, and I know it's right, and that
yeah.
being the largest or second largest expense on the P&L, like having comfort that that's right is really good. And so the people that I've hired have that same mentality where they're open to doing anything that comes up. It's a good environment to be in, and when people they see the leadership doing those kind of things, they just sort of emulate it as well, and it's like it just sort of creates the same environment for everybody.
So, um, it, you've given a lot of people advice and financial advice as someone who's been plugged into the industry for 15 plus years. What's one thing about the future of restaurants that most operators are getting wrong today? What's your advice to them?
Yeah, so I'll focus this on small company owned restaurant concepts because that's where most all my experience has been. I think the thing that people miss the most is that when you open stores in new geographies, they're not going to perform at the rate that your average is. And I see people make this mistake every day. Like,
They
and,
just
and,
expect
and
cookie cutter results,
well, they just
basically.
they well, the problem is that in these small businesses, it's very equity intensive in terms of you can't grow a business like mine through debt. You have to have equity, and if you've built structure and an overhead team, you likely have very little profitability in the early years. And a lot of people don't have any profitability at all. So you can't borrow money to continue growing. You have to continue bringing equity in. And most of the time you have just enough equity, right? So you're planning and you built a 3-year model and you expect stores that you're opening to open at average volumes, and they don't, and they won't.
Mm,
And it's rare that they do. And what happens to people is that they get those stores open, they don't perform, And then they've also got leases signed for the next year already because there's a 12-month period of time. And all of a sudden they're in a huge financial crisis and a cash crisis. And more times than not, what happens in is the whole business sort of stalls, stores get closed. I just was sending an email just before this to someone that actually had the same question. It's like, why are your stores in Atlanta and Houston performing less than the brand average? And I'm like, well, that's how it works. Like
New region.
we have three stores there that they opened at 60 to 70% of brand volume. They will not grow past that until time passes or more stores get built. Again, it's very predictable in my mind of how this all works and the math behind it. But the mistake people make is they get over their skis and what they've committed to, and then when the stores don't perform, they don't have the money to keep going.
So,
And
looking ahead a couple of years, do you think that's what separates the winners from the losers?
I think that I think there are going to be very few winners in my space.
Mm,
It's small company winners because of that, and because of the lack of investment from firms. There's just not that many people out investing in small restaurant companies today. The people that made a lot of money pre-COVID, their funds got much bigger and they've gone to bigger opportunities. And the people that lost money pre-COVID, which is the majority of people, they don't want anything to do with restaurants because it's a tougher environment. And then you've got these new folks that are coming in that don't really understand it. And so there's very little investment happening, in my mind, in sort of that 15 to 30 unit restaurant segment. And
hmm,
so when I look at it, and I've tried to do quite a bit of research, and every couple of weeks I find a restaurant that I miss. But we were at a conference. We were recognized this year as number 13 on the movers and shakers list, and we're
congrats.
very excited to be there. This is the best highest ranking we've had. I was at the banquet looking at people they were calling out, and I was like, man, all these people are franchisors. Like every single one of these people is a franchisor. Like who are the company owned people in the top 15? And it was us. It was Chipotle, 3,800 restaurants, and Urbane Cafe out of California. And
Yep.
so I came home and I was like, I wonder if what we're doing is just really not that many people doing it or
Hmm,
succeeding at it. And so I started trying to compile a list of fast casual restaurants, all company owned, in 3 states or more, and less than 40 units. And you would think there'd be tens, 50, 100 of these across the country. I think I found 12,
hmm,
like 12 in the entire US that meet that criteria. And most of those are small, and about half of them have already tried to grow and have failed
hmm.
because of what I just told you, right? And so when you look at the universe of people trying to do what we're trying to do, I think there's less than 4 or 5 people in the entire US today that have a chance to get to 50 units in the next 3 years. Like
But
I
I
think
think that puts you as a real model for what it
yes,
could look
absolutely,
like.
100%.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, it's
that's my
really
argument.
interesting.
That's
Yeah,
my pitch to people is like
right.
we
This isn't
have.
doom and gloom. It's like this is
Yeah,
possible.
yeah, it's possible. It's
Yeah,
hard, but it's
yeah,
possible. And you've got to have like one of the things that we did that's very differentiated versus what a lot of folks do is we started putting in systems and process at 3 restaurants.
yeah,
Right. We
yeah.
by the time we had 8 restaurants, we had something that was very repeatable and scalable. And a lot of times, it's not a finance person like me running the business. It's a creative type that is, it's into the food, or they're a chef, or that's what they've done. And they get to a point where they're so big, it's hard to go put all that stuff in, or it's failed before they put the stuff in. So I feel like it's an odd model, but it's a model that I've seen now work twice with Zoe's and here. And so now I'm like convinced this is the best way to do it.
Well, it's been very impressive to watch you all to be on this journey with you. And I agree. I think there's a really interesting opportunity for Original Chop Shop to be a model of a new way of operating restaurants, or maybe not even a new way, but just a more transparent way.
Yeah.
So, Jason, you are super transparent online on LinkedIn. I'm going to make you transparent in a new way. We're going to do a quick
Yes.
lightning round to finish up here. The challenge here is less than 60 seconds. It's 5 questions. It's all about you.
Okay.
So we'll start with what was your first job?
First job, I worked in the concession stand at a Carmike Cinemas in Opelika, Alabama, where I grew up.
Wow, you were in the food industry
Food
early.
industry, long, yes, yes. Slinging
What's
popcorn and Diet Cokes, yes.
what's a restaurant industry trend you're completely over?
A trend that I'm over. I'm overpaying for influencers.
Mm,
I don't think it's worth.
interesting.
I don't think it's
Hot
worth the
take.
money. I don't think it's worth the money. And especially for a brand like us.
Hot take. Hot take.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
All right. What skill are you going back to basics on personally as a human?
As a human,
Yeah. What are you working on? What are you trying to learn?
man, these touchy feely questions are tough for a finance
That's
economy.
why I asked him.
Oh my gosh, what am I working on as a human? Messaging, just messaging. I tended to be very direct in the early part of my career, to the point where I think it was offensive to people. And so I've learned a lot in the last 20 years, but I'm always conscious of it, in terms of how I write emails, how I interact with people. I tend to try to give people outs, even though if I know, like if you send me something that I know is wrong, I'm gonna write something back saying, I'm not sure if you thought about this, but what about this? And I'm not going to tell you you're wrong anymore. 20 years ago, I would have said you're wrong, and this is the right answer. And so I continually work at that.
That's a great answer. That actually answered my last question too.
Okay. Good.
So we'll end there. Yeah, Jason, thanks for indulging my lightning round. Thank you for joining us today. This was awesome. It's always such a pleasure to talk with you, and I always learn so much. And if you haven't caught Jason, either visit one of their stores at Arizona, Atlanta, greater Texas
Dallas
area,
Houston, yeah, yeah.
or catch him on LinkedIn. He has really great things to say. Jason, thanks again, and we'll see you soon.
Yeah, thanks, Rachel. Bye.
Awesome. Bye.
We have biannual review process where we go through, this is what you're doing great at, this is what you need to work on, these are your goals. And so we give people twice a year a chance to earn a merit increase. It works
Mm.
out to be the same dollar amount as if we'd have given it once a year, but it shortens up that review cycle. And I think that's been interesting. We used to do it 4 times a year, and we
Hmm.
just felt like that was a little bit administratively hard to pull off. And so we switched back to 2.
But it's almost
Um,
like a tighter feedback loop
it's a tighter
so you
feedback
can
loop.
correct faster.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
that
look,
makes
the
sense.